A herd of wandering elephants that has become famous has stopped for arrest, apparently, after a 15-month journey captivating China. In a massive logistical effort, hundreds of emergency personnel and vehicles have been deployed to keep the elephants away from densely populated areas. Wildlife authorities are struggling to understand why the herd started travelling out of their natural habitat in March last year. I was joined a short time ago by Joshua Plotnik, an expert in elephant cognition and behaviour at the City University in New York.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. The truth is we don't know. But invariably, human-elephant conflict, which is what elephants across the continent of Asia face, is largely driven by human disturbances. So human encroachment on natural elephant habitat, reduction in natural resources, food and water. And so potentially these elephants have kind of reached a crossroads where they've lost access to these resources, and they've had to leave their nature reserve where they've lived for a long time to seek out those resources elsewhere.
Have we got a sense of just how far they've travelled, where they began and where they are now? What's the distance we're talking about?
Yeah, we're talking of about upwards of 500 miles. So they've left Sichuan, which is in Yunnan province, in the south of Yunnan province, and they've traveled up to the provincial capital at this point in Kunming. So over the past year, that's quite a distance to travel. And in that time, they've come into contact with a lot of people and unfortunately caused a significant problem for the local people.
Elephants are super intelligent, aren't they? And very social animals. Are they also prone to do this sort of thing, to just pack up and leave home?
No, actually, I think this particular situation is quite unprecedented. Elephants will look for high quality resources near their homes. So what you often see in human elephant conflict in countries like Thailand, where I've studied human elephant conflict the past 15 years, is elephants will leave protected areas where they live, inside national parks, for instance, and they'll go to adjacent farms and they'll raid the crops. So they'll eat the sugarcane, the corn, the pineapples that are grown there, and then they'll go back into the protected area. So you can imagine that makes the local people in the communities quite frustrated. But this is quite unique in the fact that these elephants haven't simply just left to go, food shopping, as it were. They've traveled several hundred kilometers looking for something. And again, we don't know why they've left. As I mentioned, it could be because of loss of resources that they were looking for and did not have access to anymore in their home area. Or it could be related to, as you mentioned, something within their social group. What's interesting about this group of elephants, and it numbers approximately 15, is that it's made up of both adult females and their offspring and adult males. And that's pretty rare. So typically in an elephant herd, the matriarch, the oldest, wisest female, is in charge, and she takes care of the rest of her family group. Males leave that group when they reach sexual maturity, and then they go off on their own, or they form smaller groups looking for unrelated females to mate with. So the fact that these males have remained with this group suggests that there might be something else interesting going on here.
So that's unusual in itself, and now they're on the edge of a very populated area, the city of Kunming, and where to now? Are the authorities dealing with this appropriately in China? What's happening on this front to try and help settle the elephants and to, I guess, bring them back to some sort of contentment so they're not moving further and further into the populous areas?
Yeah, I've actually been quite impressed, and I think it's, again, unprecedented what sort of collaboration you're seeing here. So the government officials, local community members, and scientists are working together on the ground to try to come up with solutions to this problem. There are both short and long-term efforts here. The short-term solutions need to be focused on preventing the elephants from getting inside the center of Kunming and causing trouble. It's also meant to ensure that you don't have an increase in the intensity of this conflict, so that, the elephants, if they continue to raid farmers' crops or cause property damage, you're going to see an intensification of the conflict between humans and elephants, and that needs to be prevented now. But the longer term solution is to find a way to either turn those elephants back to their home or to gear them towards another protected habitat where they can live safely. The problem with that is if we don't address or understand the reason why they left their homes in the first place, there's nothing preventing them from leaving this new location again in the future.
Indeed. And when you look at the state of the elephants at this stage, from what you can ascertain from afar, do they look like they're physically in good condition right now?
Yeah, actually, they look like they're in remarkably good condition. So again, I have not worked with this group of Chinese elephants, but I've seen the images, I've seen the drone pictures that have come out in the last couple of days. These look like very well-fed elephants. I actually showed the images to an elephant veterinarian who agreed with me that these look like really well-fed elephants, which makes sense considering the fact that they are feasting on high-quality, high-sugar content fruits at this point. So they look pretty good.
And just finally, before I go, we touched on it earlier, but just give us a sense, as an expert in elephant cognition, where do they rank in terms of their intelligence? We know the old saying, a memory like an elephant, but tell us, from your expert opinion, how smart are these animals?
They're exceptionally intelligent. You know, as a scientist that studies animal behavior and cognition, I don't like to rank species, because I think that what we're really interested in doing is looking at how well adapted these animals are for the environments in which they live. And elephants are extremely well adapted. You know, they have exceptional hearing, an exceptional sense of smell, their ability to problem solve. So when they reach obstacles such as, you know, electric fences or barriers from one environment to the next, just like humans and other great apes like chimpanzees, for instance, they're able to figure out how to solve those problems. And I think that not only contributes to this conflict, but it has to come into play when we're trying to come up with solutions to it. The fact that any barrier you put up to prevent these elephants from getting access to farmlands or getting access to the cities potentially could be solved or overtaken by these elephants. So we really need to consider their intelligence when we're trying to come up with solutions to this human-elephant conflict.